Okay, here we go. Pablo Lopez has finally been traded. It feels like he's been on the trade block now for 2-3 years, but finally on the move, going to the Minnesota Twins. I absolutely love this deal for the Minnesota Twins. And the trade itself was quite a doozy. Let's get to that first. So, going to the Twins, Pablo Lopez, but you also have Jose Salas. I'm going to talk about him in just a little bit. This was a pretty big ad by the Marlins. So, but you're also getting another prospect here in Byron Chourio. And going back to the Marlins, you have Luis Arraez. So, and that's it. Only Luis Arraez. And why am I saying that's it? Well, take a look at the trade here itself. It was rejected by Baseball Trade Values, the best baseball trade simulator on the market. Now, not every deal is going to be accepted by this model. When it comes to different organizations, teams are going to value players differently. It also just depends on, the team needs. The Marlins themselves, they've been trying to add players this offseason. They've been trying to add other bats, and they've swung and missed. So it seemed like they needed to maybe kind of overpay here in this deal. So let's go take a look at the value. So Pablo Lopez, you're looking at around $38 million worth of value. And Jose Salas, he's right around $20 million worth of value. So that together, already you're at around $55 to $60 million worth of value. And Luis Arraez, $26.6 million. So this was a huge overpay by the Marlins. Now, John Bitzer goes on to comment here. The Marlins made it very clear in the offseason that they were prioritizing contact hitters. That, in addition to missing out on their top free agent targets, like I mentioned, Jose Abreu, Justin Turner, Brandon Drury, likely led them to overcommit here. As a uniquely talented hitter, it's possible the model is low on Arraez, but he offers little defensive value, zero power, and has been injury prone. And even setting Arraez and Lopez's values equal to each other, Salas's inclusion makes this a clear overpay. So again, looking just at the deal itself, the Twins they got themselves a really good deal here. But for the Marlins, they got the contact hitter that they've been looking for. They've been trying to add offense any way they can. I'm sure there were other deals out there. I'm sure the Red Sox were making some phone calls. The Padres were making some phone calls. We were hearing about the St. Louis Cardinals as well. But in the end, the hitter that the Marlins wanted, that they felt like the best deal for them, was a deal with Luis Arraez coming back to Miami. So let's really break this down here. Let's start with the main piece here, Pablo Lopez. This is a guy who, he's not going to be the ace of your rotation, maybe even some really good rotations. He's not even the number 2, more of a number 3. But for the Twins, he is the clear number 2 here. And the reason his value is as high as it is, well, he's really solid, had a really good season last year, 32 starts, 180 innings pitched, 3.75 ERA, and a 3.71 FIP. His ERA in the second half was high, but his FIP in the second half was a lot lower. I believe his ERA was in the 5s in the second half of last year, but his FIPS was in the high 3s. So projection-wise, Pablo Lopez did better than what the ERA said in the second half. So, and he's only making $5.5 million this coming year. He's got 2 years of control left until he hits free agency. So that's why you're looking at someone like a Pablo Lopez with the value that why he has the value that he has. But it's also just the market in itself. It's not very easy to go out there and go land starting pitching. Teams are hugging on to their starting pitching. It's not easy to come by a good, solid starting pitcher. And Pablo Lopez, this is a guy, he would help out any rotation, going to give you innings, at least in the middle of your rotation. Now, Pablo Lopez, he's also showing some pretty good StatCast numbers as well. Does pretty well with limiting the exit velocity. Does give up a few more barrels than you would like, but he gets a decent amount of strikeouts, decent amount of walks, gets guys to chase at a decent rate. He has good extension as well. Pitchers that have good extension, which means the ball is released from their hand closer to the plate, they tend to have more success than not. So I think Pablo Lopez, this is a guy where if you take a look at the last couple of seasons, 2.3 Fangraph WAR over the 20 starts in 2021. He was dealing with a couple of injuries there, but don't forget 2020, he was really good over those 11 starts. And 2022, his Fangraph WAR continued to get better. I think there's a chance he could be, a 3 to 4 win pitcher next year, at least according to Fangraph WAR. So I really like Pablo Lopez a lot. for this rotation. If we go take a look here at the Minnesota Twins rotation currently, Sonny Gray as the number 1. Now Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Tyler Mahle. You got Kenta Maeda in there as well. There is a lot to like about this Twins rotation. It's not going to be the best rotation out there, but it's really solid. You're getting a guy that's going to give you a ton of innings. I like this a lot for the Minnesota Twins. Their team is looking really good right now. You've got a good amount of offense here that you've added. You've added some good clubhouse guys like Christian Vasquez, who's going to improve the defense out there as well. He's going to work really well with the pitchers. I'm actually pretty excited to see Christian Vasquez and Pablo Lopez working together. I think that could end up being a pretty good match. And then you got, pretty decent bullpen as well. I really like the way this Twins team is looking. But now let's shift over to the other guy that the Twins got, and that's Jose Salas. Now, with Jose Salas, his numbers really took a dip last year when he got to high A. In A ball last year, over 61 games, he hit 267 with a 355 on base and a 421 slugging, 5 homers, 24 RBIs, but a good amount of speed, 15 stolen bases. Now, if we go take a look here at the scouting report, you got yourself an all-around player here with a ton of potential, a future hit tool of 60, a future game power of 50, a future raw power of 55. Speed is currently at a 55, so he's outpacing his future projection. And in the field, he's projected in the future to just be a 45. So who knows if he really sticks at shortstop. But this kid is he's only 19 years old. I think people were thinking, looking at his numbers, oh man, these numbers in high A ball took a bit of a dip, but he's only 19 years old, a very young kid. Yeah, sure, the numbers did dip, but scouts rave about this guy. There was a reason he was as high as he was in the Marlins system. To me, I think the Twins got themselves a really good package here, getting Pablo Lopez for your major league squad and getting a 19-year-old kid with just a good scouting report for the future. Sure, the numbers aren't quite there yet, but he's 19. Give him some time. I think he could end up being a really, really good prospect. And even just going back to before 2022, he was the number 4 prospect in the Marlins system. As of right now, he's only number 13 in the Twin system. So I'm excited to see what he can do. But again, 19 years old, and this kid shows a ton of poise. I'm excited to see how this works out. Now, let's talk about what the Marlins got here. We got Luis Arraez. This guy was just a hitting machine last year. If you take a look at the numbers, hit 316, a 375 on base, 420 slugging, a 131 WRC plus. You're not going to get a lot of power with Luis Arraez, but you're going to get a ton of contact. Look at the batting average on balls in play, a 331. That's extremely solid. This guy is just elite when it comes to putting the bat on the ball. So for the Marlins, I do like what they got here. This is going to be your leadoff guy. The offense is looking a lot better with Luis Arraez at the top. However, with the Marlins, I just think they did not get nearly enough. The trade values showed that, but I feel like they should have been able to get something else in this deal. I mean, I would have been even just okay if you just did a swap of Pablo Lopez and Luis Arraez. Lopez would have had the higher value, but at least with Arraez, you can make that argument that the contact that he brings, he's going to bring that leadoff ability to the table. It still would have been a bit of an overpay, but the fact that you had to give up a prospect like Salas in this deal, that is just crazy, and that's all the Marlins got. And the one thing with Luis Arraez, sure, he makes a ton of contact. I love how much he puts the bat on the ball, but when it comes to the exit velocity, and again, I know power is not really his game, but it's still, when you look at it from a projection point of view, at some point, this BABIP is going to come down. League average is way under this. I don't know. I'm just wondering if he's going to be able to keep that going. He doesn't get a lot of barrels on the ball as well. He just makes not great. He makes contact, but not great contact overall. But at least he does walk. He's right there in the 51st percentile. He doesn't chase a whole lot either. So he's going to be good for the Marlins at the top of the order. I do like the fit. Sure, I'm not overly excited about the projections of, what his hitting is going to be in the future, but I do like what he brings to the Marlins. I think this is the exact kind of a bat that they needed right now. And Pablo Lopez was expendable. Overall, I am liking this Marlins team. Again, this bat really changes the lineup completely. And the rotation, even though Pablo Lopez isn't in it anymore, you brought in Johnny Cueto not too long ago. You still got Sandy Alcantara here, Jesus Luzardo, Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers at the 5. This is a really good looking rotation for the Marlins. I'm liking the way this Marlins team is looking. And, overall, this deal, I'm not the biggest fan of what the Marlins got, but I'm glad at least they got a piece that they really did need. So at least you can give them that. With Jose Salas, sure, could he end up being a special player down the road? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But overall, this deal, I like the deal, but again, I just think the Marlins could have done more here. But before I do end the video, there is one other thing to take note of with the Marlins. They announced today that Jazz Chisholm is going to be moving to center field. So I was starting to wonder, okay, well, now they added a Luis Arraez, who is now going to be playing second base because Jazz Chisholm is moving to center field. I was wondering, are they going to, move someone else here? Because they had a lot of pieces in this infield. So, but now they've figured this out now. And Jazz Chisholm, obviously a special player, did have some issues with the clubhouse last year. Some of the guys weren't too big of a fan of his attitude at times, but I think Jazz Chisholm is going to be a good center fielder. He's great in the field. He's extremely athletic. I definitely think center field is going to be a really good home for him. How will he do, when it comes to just simply the route running, when it comes to, snagging fly balls? We'll have to just wait and see how he does with that over, a full season. But overall, because the Marlins did need a center fielder. They had been connected with Brian Reynolds, even though he's not the greatest center fielder out there. They were still looking to improve that. So to me, they killed two birds with one stone here, with Arraez now moving to second base and now Jazz Chisholm going to center field. It looks a lot better right now. I'm liking the way this Marlins team is looking. Again, sure, I would have liked for them to maybe get a little bit more in this deal, but in the end, after trying to add offense this offseason, it seemed like they kind of had to step up on a deal. Maybe the Twins had another deal with another team. Maybe the Red Sox or the Padres or the Cardinals. We had heard more about the Cardinals recently. Maybe there was a deal there, and maybe the Marlins just said, all right, you know what? We'll send over Salas as well. Let's get this deal done. So maybe they just included him just to get the deal done, give the Twins an offer they couldn't refuse. We have seen deals like that this offseason where deals are just presented where it's like you can't turn this down. We saw it with the Reds and the Mariners with the Luis Castillo trade, where they offered just so much more than what the values suggested. So in the end, teams are going to have to do that sometimes just to try and get a deal done. But let me know what you think down below in the comments of this trade. Do you think it's a good trade? Do you think the Marlins maybe just did not get enough in this deal? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. But that's all I have for right now, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.